Welcome to the AARP Arizona Community Education Program. This is a volunteer-led program provided by AARP Arizona that offers basic conversations on topics of interest, such as Social Security, Medicare, fraud, caregiving, finances, and more. I'm Jerry Waterworth. I'm one of the volunteer coordinators of the program, and with me today are some of our volunteer speakers. And I'd like to introduce Bonnie and Linda, Steve, Gary, Joyce, and Rob. And today we want to introduce you to the Fraud Watch Network. This is an effort by AARP to provide information on fraud and fraud prevention. In this series, we'll cover scams related to COVID-19, identity theft, the con artist's playbook, how scams and fraud begin, prevention strategies, and resources to get help. But in today's video, we want to focus just on scams specifically related to COVID-19. This is part one of a two-part discussion on COVID-related fraud. Our speaker today is Linda Vitale, who's a regular speaker and writer on fraud-related topics. But before we get to Linda, I'd like to ask if any of our volunteers have experienced any recent COVID-related fraud or scams. Has anybody seen anything? Bonnie.
Thank you. I think because so many people are ordering materials, excuse me, online, and if you have a PayPal account, you may be using it, but there are a lot of scam emails coming that look like they're from PayPal that say things like your account has been limited, and they give you a link or ask you to share some information. Those are definitely scams. If you get one, delete it and go into your PayPal account how you normally would, and then see if you have any messages that indicate your account has been limited. So we just need to be careful of any of the online orders that we make sure that they're not scams, the emails that we are getting in return.
Thank you, Bonnie. And Joyce?
Yes, recently our neighbor was expecting a package and it got delivered by UPS. After it got delivered, my husband was out in the yard and he happened to notice a car pull up. A lady jumped out and grabbed the package, and when he went to go after her, he dropped the package and then got back in the car and took off. So you have to be careful and have somebody available to pick up your package if you're not home.
Very good. Anyone to add? Steve?
Yeah, in January, I ordered an item via the internet, paid with it on a credit card, and I received the item. But I noticed the next month on my credit card statement, I was charged additional fees for both February and March. Tried to get a hold of the company, and it's very hard to get a hold of them to talk to somebody live. So I did resolve the issue through the internet, through an email. But then I also noticed in June and July, they also credited my credit card statement for items that I never purchased. So, I don't know if it's a scam or they have a computer problem, but everybody must be aware that you need to check your credit card statement line by line to make sure that you're not being charged for something that you did not order.
Gary?
In that same light, I agree with that. You got to be careful what you order on Facebook too. They had the double stick tape that my wife ordered, and it was supposed to be like $1.36. Well, when we got the statement, it was $83. So then we had to call the credit company to get it done through there. And that's another good thing too. Don't use a debit card, use a credit card, because that way you can go right to the bank and correct that situation.
Bonnie? Yes, go ahead.
I just wanted to add that the credit card companies, like Gary was saying, can be very helpful, because I know with Amex, if you're getting billed for something that you did not order, you can actually put a block on that particular company, so no payments go out, and it can be for up to 4 years until you remove the block. So as long as they're not getting money, they're more willing to find a way to communicate with you and work it out. So that can be very helpful.
Great. That's all very helpful information. But now why don't we turn to Linda, how common COVID-related scams have become recently?
Welcome, everybody. Yeah, I can tell you that scams are spreading as quickly as the virus is. Criminals are leveraging this pandemic to their advantage totally. They're exploiting our fears, our uncertainty, our social isolation. They are then using those heightened anxieties to use against us, to prey on our emotions. And when we're in a heightened emotional state like that, we are more vulnerable, we are more easily deceived and more easily manipulated. So I would say I just have two little things here to mention that'll just show you the extent of what these fraudsters are doing since the pandemic began. One of them is that 20 million websites have been created so far since the pandemic began that use the name coronavirus or COVID in the name of the website to try to lure you to those particular websites, most of which are fraudulent fake websites, imposter websites. The other thing is that Google is reporting that they are blocking 18 million phishing emails per day since the pandemic got out of hand. So just right there, that shows you how bad things are. The Federal Trade Commission has reported that they've had 91,000 complaints since January, with millions and millions of dollars being lost to some of these scams.
That's amazing how that has grown to be such a problem. Well, why don't you share with us what some of the common COVID-related scams are, Linda?
Well, I guess we're going to discuss a lot of these scams that already exist, but they are right now being used more because of the pandemic. So obviously everybody is home more and shopping online, as we were discussing before, and we're all expecting packages to be delivered. And so because of that, there are a lot of phishing emails that are out there coming through our inboxes and in text messages from either the retailer that we bought a product from or the delivery company. And basically, you have to just be very careful because these phishing emails look very authentic. And they usually contain a link of some sort. And most phishing emails contain a link with some kind of message that creates an urgency or that you need to follow through with. And in this particular case, with the package delivery ones, it's usually that there's a problem with a package that you sent or are expecting to receive, or an opportunity to trace the package that you're expecting. So be very careful, not to be fooled by some of these. Most of them will have a tracking number, and if it's something you bought with that shipper, then it's probably safe, but it's always better to just, what I do in that case is I will copy the tracking number and paste it into the delivery company, if it's post office, and do it through their own tracking service rather than click on the link in the email. So, because if you click on a link in a tainted email, what will happen is that you will have malware installed on your computer. And malware is very dangerous because once it's on your computer, the person who put it there then has access to your files and has put keystroking, they can log your keystrokes and see what you're doing online and when you're entering passwords and things like that. That is why it's so dangerous to not, to click on links in unsolicited emails and fake phishing emails. The next one, of course, is fake emails and fake websites, fake products on fake websites. And as we all, as I mentioned before, there's millions of websites that have been created now with coronavirus in the name. A lot of these fraudsters are basically trying to sell their wares, masks, gloves, PPE, personal protective equipment, sanitizer, test kits, cures, vaccines, all of these things. And I will tell you that just this morning, I got a notice from the Federal Trade Commission that, and this is really, really important, that the Federal Trade Commission and the FDA have been notifying customers to be very careful buying hand sanitizer online. Apparently, there's about 77 companies out there that are selling hand sanitizer under different company names, and the hand sanitizer contains methanol. And if you put that on your skin, it is very, very toxic and very dangerous. And some of these are even being sold as kids' products to have used for the kids. One of them has Hello Kitty in the name. So it's really, really dangerous what's going on out there. So be very careful of the websites that you're buying on. Make sure you're using legitimate retailers that you know and that you trust. What these fraudulent websites are trying to do are capture your personal information, including your credit card. So be careful there. And a lot of times you might order something and you think it went through fine, and maybe it even did. The credit card transaction might have gone through. But what will happen is you won't get your merchandise and there will be a charge on your card. So these are the things you have to look out for. And also, while we're talking about that, I just want you to know that, as we talked about earlier, it is so much better to use your credit card online versus your debit card for a number of reasons. Medicare fraud is another one that's been out there for a long, long time, but what we want to emphasize is that, number one, Medicare doesn't call you, they don't text you, they don't email you, neither does the CDC and the World Health Organization and a lot of these other imposters trying to contact you to offer medical testing, free screening. Just beware of that. And what they're looking for, again, is your medical ID number, which will then give you medical ID theft, which is very serious, a very serious type of identity theft that can have deadly consequences. So be careful and not give out your Medicare number. And then I guess we can go on to the next one, which is, this one is not a typical scam, but it has been created because of the coronavirus. It is known as the contact tracing scam. And what contact tracing is if it's a program where if you are exposed to a virus, you've taken a test and they know you tested positive, there's a service from the state health department then that a contact tracer from the health department would call you and tell you that you are tested positive, and that they will try to find out who else you were in contact with, where you were, and all of that, in order to contact other people who were that you possibly exposed, to help them know that they need to quarantine and that they might have the virus as well. So these contact tracing scams are people who are pretending to be from the state health department and pretending that, they know you've been tested positive. And the difference between a legitimate one and a fake one is that a fake one, an imposter, will not ask you for personal information like your Medicare card number, your social security number, will not ask you for money or any of that. All they will do is ask you for contact information of people that you may have been in contact with since you have been tested positive. So watch out for that one.
Right. Well, that's all great information for us and for our viewers. But how do we protect ourselves? How do we prevent from becoming victims of fraud, Linda?
Well, as you see there on that slide, it is a fact that 91% of all cybercrime usually, and that's for business and personal, usually begins with a spam phishing email or a text message. Usually they contain links. So be careful, be wary of emails that contain words like verified, confirmed, suspended, congratulations, or you won. Those are all things to put you in a heightened emotional state and try to get you to have to respond by clicking on a provided link. Also be wary of text messages that have things like confirmation or verification, those words in the text message. And of course, telephone callers asking you to verify things or confirm things. Again, especially if they are sensitive personal information. Always know that if a legitimate company calls you, they will never, ever ask you for personal information in an email or a text message or a phone call, and will not ask you to give your Social Security number or your Medicare number. So I would say that one of the main things to, take away in this presentation, if anything, is to never click on links or email in an email or a text message unless you first verify the legitimacy of that email. What I do is if I get one and I'm not sure, I will go straight to the vendor or the company and log in rather than click on that link in an email. Or if it's from somebody I know, then it seems a little suspicious or I'm not sure, I will call that person and say, did you send me an email with this link in it? Always verify. The idea there is instead of clicking on that link, you want to delete those emails and you want to ignore those texts. And then we can move on to the next thing there, which is robocalls and telemarketers. Most robocalls are illegal. Robocalls are basically just recorded voices on the phone, and most of them, as I say, are illegal. And telemarketing, a lot of those are just people fishing for information, and they use a technique that is called spoofing. And what that is they use technology to be able to change what you see on your caller ID. So you might think you're talking to the IRS, or there might be a number, it might even be a local number, or even your own telephone number that appears on your caller ID. And it's just there, to try to get you to pick up the phone. And if you get a phone call from a robocaller asking you to press a number, or a 0 for the operator, don't do it. That is just to get you to be on a sucker list and verify that your number is good, and they will then keep bothering you even more. The other thing is, I mentioned before, it is really important, we're all of us shopping online right now, to make sure that you're using either a prepaid card that has a finite amount of money on it, or a credit card rather than a debit card, because you have a lot more recourse that way than if you use a debit card. You could be responsible for a lot of lost money if you use your debit card and then that debit card gets cloned or compromised. So always use don't use that debit card, use a credit card instead. That's really, really important advice when you're shopping online. The other thing is be very careful. Make sure that you are keeping your computers secure, your devices secure. You've got good software and malware protection on there, and you're keeping them updated. Make sure you regularly, at least once a month, I put a reminder on my calendar to remind me to make sure that I back up my important files, at least my document file for sure. Those are important things to do. The other thing on the slide is to make sure that you are using strong passwords. And when I say strong, I mean using a mix of letters and numbers and symbols and things like that. Things that a fraudster is not going to be able to guess. But the other thing is, you see there's the word on that slide that says unique. And what I mean by that is you don't want to have the same password that logs into your banking as the same password that you use to log into Facebook or Amazon or any other important website that you frequent a lot. The other thing there is to use two-factor authentication, 2FA, which basically means it is a secondary form of verifying that you are you. And many websites now are allowing you to use that, so that it takes more than just that password to log on and get into your account. They will usually text you a code number or email you a code number so that you can get into your account, even if a fraudster has stolen your password. And while I'm on that, I want to tell you that Instacart yesterday probably got hacked, because there are hundreds of thousands of passwords from Instacart users that are being sold on the dark web right now. So I advise, if you use Instacart to do online shopping for groceries, that you change your password immediately. And lastly, if you're doing anything with Wi-Fi, remember that public Wi-Fi can go through walls. It is not private. Anyone can steal whatever information you're doing when you're using public Wi-Fi. So be careful not to do anything where you need to put in personal information or passwords when you're using public Wi-Fi. And lastly, of course, I think it just behooves everybody to realize that you should not ever give out unsolicited personal information or ever send money to anybody unsolicited, especially if that money is being asked for in the form of a prepaid card, a bank wire, giving them your bank information, things like that are suspicious, especially gift cards and things like that. And then, of course, we have a lot of resources to get help. And the Fraud Watch Network is loaded with all kinds of wonderful information and a helpline and things to read and videos to watch. So that would be the go-to website first and foremost. And then after that, I would say that it's really important to regularly check your credit report as often as possible. You want to go on the website there, theannualcreditreport.com, to do it. It's free there. And right now, all of the 3 credit bureaus are offering free weekly credit checks. So you could take advantage of that if you want to check your credit report. Also, put your name on the do not call list so that you get less telemarketing calls. That's really important to do. And be careful when you're giving charity. There's going to be a lot of charity scams that are already out there right now, and we're going to start having hurricane season. There's going to be a lot of disaster-related charity scams. You want to go to Charity Watch and check the name of the charity before you give. You don't want to do it in an email or a text. You want to go on directly to the charitable website. And then there's also a lot of information on the Federal Trade Commission, all kinds of things there for coronavirus scams. They actually have a tab for coronavirus scams in particular. And also the Arizona Attorney General's office just this morning said that they have recovered $100 million in restitution to give back to consumers who have been defrauded. So that's a good place to file complaints. And then if they go after a company and get restitution via a fine, you can actually get, some of your money sent back to you. So that's what I've got for today. And we will do part 2 with more coronavirus scams in the next episode.
Hey, terrific, Linda. Thank you very much. It's all very useful information. And I'm sure it'll help our viewers as well.
Good.
The resources and help us spot fraud and not become victims of fraud. Before we close out the video, are there any other comments that anyone would like to add? If not, we want to thank you all for being a part of this today. The Fraud Watch Network is only one of several topics covered by the Community Education Program by AARP Arizona, Stay tuned for additional information in the series on fraud-related products, particularly coronavirus scam part 2, as well as additional videos on Medicare, Social Security, preparing to care, and finances. These are all topics that are useful for us as we age and as we prepare for our future security. So thanks to our volunteers for your support today and your contribution to this effort. Stay tuned to the AARP Arizona Facebook page for regular updates from the community education program. There's much more to come. So thank you for joining us today.